Hey everybody, I'm back with another sculpting video. As you may have noticed, I'm continuing my quest for the optimal camera view so that I can show you what I'm doing, but also see what I'm doing. So my last setup, it was nice. It gave a very good view, gave almost the exact view I had of the miniature, but it was getting to be very difficult for me to do anything sort of detail because I just could not get my face close enough, or as close as I like it to be, in order to see what I was doing. And so it's getting a little tricky there. So I'm trying this angle. Hopefully it is easy to see, and feel free to, or actually please, tell me how it looks, and hopefully I kept it in focus. So it's a little harder for me to check if I'm keeping everything in position. So yeah, anyways, but now on to the tutorial. So this is going to be a video about sculpting cloth forms, over the body. So, and I'll start talking about that in a second. But right here, I'm just polishing off a little bit of the anatomy right before I get into the main tutorial. So without further ado, here it is. Okay, so a lot of time with clothing, you can, you want to get lots of nice folds and everything, but what you can do is you can basically just kind of get the general form of the area, in this case the torso here, and then, or even the pants, and you just kind of press in details, and I'll go over and I'll do a tutorial specifically for that someday, but I wanted to show you guys a cool technique to give a much more form-fitting, not even form-fitting, but it's basically a technique that allows you to sculpt the anatomy the way you want it. So in this case, I'm going to be working on this girl's torso here. So you've got the rib cage defined and the bust and all that other stuff, but what you can then do is you can add on little bits of putty to create those the wrinkles and folds, and you give a lot of movement but still be able to see the form, and it helps keep it from being as blobby. Plus it can be a nice practice where if you're trying to get down the form, especially if you're working with something in putty, where you might sculpt the anatomy and then let it set, and then you can't just press in a crease now or a little fold in the armpit area here around the waist. You have to add material. So in this case, the way she's twisting and everything, I want it to kind of be pulling. But so I've got the anatomy here. So all you have to do is grab a bit of putty. And I like to do it in strips. I mean, you can get longer clumps and stuff, but you can always add and fix later on if it's not enough, or if it's too much, you can trim it off. But you just start putting on a little bit like that, and then you slowly just blend it in. It's okay if it deforms your anatomy a little bit, because you can just chalk that up to the clothing, wrinkling or rippling. So there's a nice little strand there. Let's put another one on. So you're going to be bunching up a little bit here because she's kind of leaning over a bit. And I do tend to use this when I sculpt this technique. I try and do as much as possible with my large burnisher here. This is the Wax 5. But anything similar to it every now and then, though, I do like to, pop in here with the clay shaper, or if it ends up being a much smaller fold, then you might even come in with something smaller, like a needle probe or something. But I like to use the larger tool because it keeps me focused on getting the large shapes in there, and it keeps you from focusing too much on all the tiny little details. So you do have to be a little careful, because you can, if you put too much material on, you can start to lose a little bit of that anatomy. But it's all about carefully hopefully I'm keeping that in focus. Carefully adding a little bit here and there in key locations. Let's see, put a little bit up in here. I'm just really trying to give this the idea that, you know, she's got a nice twist in her body here, and, you know, it's pulling the clothing accordingly. You guys get to hear how I really sound when I sculpt. A lot of interesting breathing patterns. I find I hold my breath. And just for you guys, I'm not humming. Usually when I sculpt and there's no music or anything else going on, I'm usually sort of whistling or humming under my breath. So, but I'm holding back. So like I said, I use this to get a lot of large shapes, and it's rounded, so it's very easy to blend in. But sometimes, you know, you want to give a more of a defined, well, not even defined, but you know, when I want it to be a little bit more angular with some of the strokes, that's, you know, it's up to you, you know, if you want them to be smoother, more rounded. But the way I sculpt, the way I like to sculpt, I like to have things look a little bit more angular. Like, even though it's still sweeping and rounded, like there's, you know, just these little hints of angularity in it. So, all right. Anyway, so you kind of, see that now. You know, I'll obviously be adding a lot more onto this. You know, she's got sleeves and everything, and actually I'll probably end up modifying a little bit because there's going to be a belt there. But I just wanted to give you guys a quick look on how I approach that. So hopefully that was helpful, and as always, feel free to leave a comment, answer your questions, like the video, share it around, and I'll see you next time. Keep sculpting.